Guys, we are back again for another week in sport. The, look, as you can see, the locations haven't changed. He's still out there eating all the steaks. What is it? What you had? The rump? What you had? Sirloin? What you on now? T-bones? What you got?
We've had the ribeye, we've had the T-bone, we've had the sirloin. You know what I'm like, mate. I come out here to Argentina, I'm just splashing the cash all over. It is so not like that at all, Sam. Honestly, I think I've had one steak dinner since I've been here. It's not cheap anymore, this place. It's not like used to be 20 quid for the best steak in town, and now we're looking at like 60, 70 quid at the big restaurants. So
But
no, I'm in,
you're
I'm
You're
enjoying it.
Ollie Wilson in Argentina, mate. Are they not sorting you out, mate? Do we need to have words? Let's call the
Oh,
agents, don't we?
look, I'm thinking about getting a bus up to the cup final this weekend, as opposed to what it used to be back in the day, where they'd fly me up first class. Nah, it's never been like that. I'm a man of the people, Sam. You know me.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So you got like the little goat and the cow next to you, like on the bus. Yeah, you can alone.
It's more the I've got the fresh grapes from my own vineyard that I've picked up in Mendoza.
Oh,
That's the
here
kind
he
of man of
is.
the people that I am. Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Nice bottle of Malbec in the bag, tucked in for the overnight journey. It'll do you. It'll do you.
Love that, mate. But to be fair, it's been great, obviously, seeing you having the chance to look at some of these players that obviously going into the big clubs. I saw your piece on Endrick as well, and I think a few people that would be quite grateful to obviously see that because yeah, some of these players just seem to just pop across, and no one really knows about them. And I think it's quite important for football fans to go and look at other football. I think we look at
Mm.
Champions League, we then make a judgment on a player from the couple of games we see in the Champions League, and we watch a lot of Premier League football here in England. So it's quite important that players probably or fans get to see these other players. But you're seeing it firsthand. Has it been anything sort of out of the ordinary, or has it been sort of the favourites winning these games still?
I mean, the Brazilian sides are stumbling their way through at the moment, which is actually really interesting. But anybody that's seen anything on my social media, I know I'm not like a huge regular poster on it, but O_J_Wilson across all social media platforms will know that I'm obsessed with this 16-year-old Kendry Paez who's moving to Chelsea in the summer of 2025. This kid is so good, 16 years of age, and he's
Wow.
bossing the show at the highest level in South American football against the biggest sides. I mean, his team, Independiente del Valle, is renowned for bringing through youngsters, and they've done that.
Mhm.
Moises Caicedo came out of there, of course. But I've never seen a 16-year-old run the show at this level. And I've been working on South American football since 2019. I've seen a few of the youngsters come through. No one is as good as this kid is right now at this age, let alone, I don't think I've seen anybody run the show in general, whatever age they
Wow.
are at this level. He's phenomenal. If he can just stay out of the New York strip clubs,
Yeah.
which he was which he was caught in at 16 years old,
No
which
way.
raises a few questions. Yeah, I couldn't get into a freaking bar when I was 19 in the US, let alone this kid getting into strip clubs around the place. If he could just stay out of those, he'll be fine. Chelsea
the,
have a wonder kid on their hands, mate. I'm sorry to say it.
the Pat McAfee in me, I wanted to roll my sleeves up, going, "Well done, boy, well done." But no, sensible. Get
Yeah.
your money up first, man. Get your money up first. Yeah, I think there'll be
This is the
anyone that
football
wants.
manager in you coming
I
out,
was
isn't it?
I was just about to say, Football Manager fans will want you to be able to spell that out. We'll make sure, any sort of people that are potentially editing this. Yeah, we'll write down the name of that person in the bio just to make sure people can obviously pick that one up, mate. But yeah, obviously there's people trying to pick up youngsters. You mentioned Casado there, and he was due to go to potentially Arsenal or Liverpool. Arsenal managed
Mm.
to recover, picked up Declan Rice. We saw the talent there of him and Partey obviously this weekend, which was successful. But someone who didn't get them was Liverpool. And obviously they picked up Endo. I'm going to try not to butcher his name, but Slabajai. Oh, that didn't come out too good. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's obviously gone in there. Looks like a great signing. Endo probably goes under the radar a little bit, but that team has not been consistent. And we've seen obviously Klopp chop and change, and they've gone up against West Ham, and basically their star-studded team of with people like Nunes and Salah on the bench. It's cost them again potentially with dropping points. Do you think that's them out of the running now? Do you think there's got no chance of them obviously catching Man City or Arsenal at this point?
It's a two-horse race now. Liverpool have unfortunately seen the bed and decided to ruin it. Let's call it that in this last few moments, and it's a shame because I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I think what Jurgen Klopp has done, and he's he's really reinvigorated and re-inspired the club.
Mm,
Brendan Rodgers kind of started to do it, and Klopp's taken that work and blown it up tenfold. Obviously, a
yeah.
Premier League title and everything that comes with that, the success Klopp has had with the club. And, you know, a football fan can at least appreciate the fact that you kind of want to see Jurgen Klopp going out of English football, as it looks like it's going to be at the end of this season, with a bit of a last like song and dance, so to speak, rather than this kind of whimpering onto the end finish.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
it's a bit sad. And also, as a neutral fan, you want to see a three-way title fight on the last day of the season where we're bouncing around three different games on Sky Sports or whoever that we're
Yeah.
watching on that.
Do you know what? I've enjoyed it. Listen, I, I kind of enjoyed it a little bit from an Arsenal point of view. I actually think it helps. I think when you're just going toe to toe with Man City probably don't have that, aren't probably that feared of one team. I think they know that they can better one team. But knowing you're going out having to go up against these two teams that you have to be better, and I think it creates an added pressure because if you do drop points, and don't forget, Liverpool were top, what, 3 weeks ago? They were top.
Mm.
Arsenal was still having to win games to catch them. Man City was still having to win games to catch them. You know, it shows you drop points. Two teams are now obviously gone above you, and I think that's the pressure I kind of wanted Man City to have and really test them. And I don't want to say I don't actually like saying that Liverpool have bottled it, but obviously there was that energy obviously with Arsenal last season at those points, and we saw actually throughout this season there was a point where Liverpool actually had quite a decent points difference between both Arsenal and Man City. Now, I don't like to call teams bottle jobs in that sense. I think if you're the last 3, 4 games maybe, and you're like, I don't know, 4 points clear or something like that, 5 points clear, and you don't get over the line, then I think you've choked because you would have probably had to lose basically two games at that point, and I think that's where you bottle it. I think people keep using that term bottling way too early for my liking across the board, but it is disappointing with Liverpool for them not to see it through. My thing, Ollie, though, I come back to this with Klopp. If it, how many Champions League? One Champions League
Yeah,
in
one
Liverpool.
Champions League. Yeah.
One Champions League, one league title. Got a Carabao Cup. Um, people saying like he's one of the greatest managers to be in the Premier League. I'm struggling to see where he falls into that. With, we talk about Fergie, talk about Wenger, talk about Jose Mourinho, right? For me, goes in there. Um, Tuchel won the Champions League with Chelsea. Is he one of the great? And I'm talking like kind of modern era there, really. But is he one of the greats?
I think you would argue that what he did with Liverpool, of coming in, completely overturning the style of football that they play, making it so
Hmm.
aesthetically pleasing, doing it. I mean, we touched on it. Was it last week? I may have been
Mm.
talking to my mate out here who's a big Liverpool fan, to be honest, but talking about how they've spent money, but also they spent money because, for instance, they got paid a boatload for Coutinho and then used that to go and sign
Yeah,
Allison and Van Dijk, for instance. It wasn't like, oh, we've got all this outside investment and we'll just throw a wheelbarrow of cash at somebody. It was
yeah,
right. We've got this money from over here. Let's turn it and use it into signing two excellent signings. And they've been very astute in a number of the transfers that they've made
yeah,
as a
yeah,
football club.
yeah.
So as a modern day football manager, to be able to compete with Manchester City, to have a continuous run of competing at the highest level in the Champions League, going to multiple finals, winning one, of course, to finally bringing a Premier League title to Liverpool, which
Mm,
that city and that side has been starved of that for so long. And then
mm.
it's very unfortunate they have it in the COVID year where there's no fans can celebrate with them, which was, again, I think we saw, whether you're a Liverpool fan or not, like potentially iconic evening slightly ruined by
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think what Jurgen Klopp has done with Liverpool is definitely up there with one of the great jobs of
Mm.
football management in the modern Premier League era, for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't
No,
it
he's the
doesn't
class.
scream Sir Alex Ferguson, it doesn't scream Arsene Wenger, but what it does, it's a bit like Wenger. If Klopp is like Wenger in that Wenger came into Arsenal, changed that team, made it a completely different side for the better going forward in its history, and elevated it back to big contending side in English
Mm.
football and on European football as well. And Klopp has done that with Liverpool. So you'd argue that it's been a shorter run for Klopp with Liverpool, but it's been as important to Liverpool Football Club, particularly going forward after him too.
It, yeah, and this is where I think he's done really well. I'm actually surprised potentially at the new appointments. Arnie Slot, is it Feyenoord,
Yeah.
I think he's coming from. I've not seen enough of Feyenoord, so I'd love people to maybe potentially comment on this. But with Wenger, you touched on it there with Wenger, the style of play. You touched on it with Klopp, like that style of play. If you associate Arsenal was about that, quick free flowing 1-2 touch, cut through knife like knife through butter sort of thing. In terms of how they play. I think Klopp's kind of given a blueprint of how you can be successful in the Premier League with a Liverpool side that creates a bit of excitement, hard press, that work ethic. If that gets torn up, to me, I think that's actually the biggest mistake. And I don't know enough about this Arnie Slot if he does play in a similar way. But Arteta has his own way. It's not the Wenger way, but it's still an identity there. And I think that's what Arteta was pretty good at bringing back in. So I think it would be a shame for Liverpool to lose uh, that energy and that style of play, because I think that could actually set them back a little bit. Obviously, when they were linked with the lad from Sporting Lisbon, I was having the same questions. I'm like, this guy plays like medium block, low block football and goes on the counter. This isn't Liverpool. So that's my only concern with that one. I do like seeing other people. It'd be nice for the Premier. The Premier League has such an opportunity, Ollie, for me. Like if Man United can get themselves into gear and Chelsea can finally get up there, putting them in the mix with the likes of Villa and Spurs in there, the Premier League could actually really kind of go back to saying they are the best league in the world. But right now, it's kind of hard to. As an argument that it's not.
It's funny though that we're talking about this when we're having arguably a three-way title fight at least until the last kind of 2-3 games of the season for the first time in ages,
Mm,
and we're seeing City getting pushed at the moment right down to the wire by Arsenal. So it's actually been one of the most entertaining title races that we've had in the Premier League for some time, and yet you're still saying maybe it's not the best league in the world because there's still so many that are that far adrift of being able to compete.
mm,
Whereas I don't think there are many other leagues right now that have got that level of title fight in
yeah.
them. Bayer Leverkusen have dominated in Germany. Paris Saint-Germain continue to dominate in French football as they kind of always will with the way it's set up right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
Inter have absolutely whitewashed the Scudetto with taking the Scudetto in the derby against Milan, one of the most humiliating nights in Milan's football history. I mean,
Yeah.
disaster. And a
Yeah.
very boring title fight after we've had a few boring ones with Juventus for 10, 15
That's
years
true.
dominating Serie A as well. So I
Yeah.
still think you would say that the Premier League is probably the most entertaining and interesting,
Mm,
at least in terms of title fights of all of the top leagues around English football. But it
fair.
would be nice to have 6 teams
Yeah.
fighting at least over second, maybe
Yeah.
first. But the trouble is, it's like until the news that came today, you just look at it and think, well, Manchester City can still do what they want, and they probably still can do what they want. But the Premier League's
There'll be
made a
loopholes, won't
move
there?
today.
Yeah, there'll be
Right?
loopholes to this. Explain
Oh,
it.
City
Explain
will
it to
find them.
everyone.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Premier League today, the teams have voted an agreement that a cap is coming in, which anybody like you and I, Sam, who are American football fans, US sport fans, have been thinking about this for a long period of time of
Yeah.
how do you slow down the spending in modern day football. So the Premier League's instituted a cap coming in, I think it's 25-26 season, they've said, in terms of spending, where no team can spend more than 5 times the TV revenue of the lowest side in the Premier League. So the side that's receiving the least amount of
Release.
TV revenue, you can spend a maximum of 5 times that sum of money in a season. Which,
What does that look like? Does anyone know a figure what that potentially looks like?
I mean, I'm assuming it's still around 700 million, if I'm
That-
honest.
Is it really? Oh my God. I
Well,
mean, that's pretty crazy if it is still. I mean,
if you think at least 140 40 million, I imagine, goes to each Premier League team in
Wow.
the lowest level in English football, I'd have thought.
Wow.
So if that's the case, then times that by 5, yeah, you're probably looking at like 700 odd million. It's actually, though, a very smart move, I think, made by Premier League sides because it is a cap.
Mm.
It's a very clear financial indicator of this is how much you can spend. Seen it in Formula One. If you spend over, there in theory will be repercussions. 156 financial
Yeah.
irregularities for Manchester City incoming then. But also, it means the Premier League is still giving itself a huge buffer of the amount of money
Yeah.
it can spend. So it's not going
Yeah.
to be threatened by Real Madrid. It's not going to be
Mm.
threatened by Bayern Munich. It could still maybe be threatened by Saudi and Paris Saint-Germain, but they're also recognizing that there is no point in Premier League sides, I think, trying to almost bankrupt themselves to compete with Paris Saint-Germain, with Saudi Arabia, etc. And they're saying, right, look, let's do something that makes everybody think we're doing something really great for football, but it
Hmm.
also still allows us to dominate the transfer market when it comes to the amount of money that can be spent in
So,
comparative to any other league in European football.
so just pulling up some figures here from 21-22 season, and Norwich were the bottom side. And now everyone got a fair equal share, which was the 31 million. So even if you go 5 times that amount, you got 150 million you can spend, and that's the bottom side. But
Yeah, that's
actually,
also on old television deals, though, isn't it? So
exactly. So actually, what they ended up with it in terms of a share was actually Norwich by the end was 93 million, and they were the bottom side.
yeah,
So what cap? Well, who's the last team to potentially spend 500 million? What cap? Unless
the
that's unless that includes you're saying 500 million is your transfer fees and your yearly salaries. I don't know, but even then, when do you where do you cap that? Is that with the first team? Is that with the under 23s? It just sounds like we've tried to make it look like we're doing something. Yeah, we're
yeah,
actually, but it's not actually changing a thing. I think you just gotta. I think everyone's gonna butcher figures. Unless FIFA, globally go over this and say, look, teams, just to maybe get this across, the likes of with Saudi and stuff like that, that you cannot spend more than 200, 250 million a season, and that goes for everyone.
yeah.
Will it
That's like
work?
two players these days as well.
But then
250 million.
would that then not regulate the cost of a player though
Nah,
by doing that?
nah, because as market shares grow, for Premier League continue to dominate around the world, that means that the value of the Premier League goes up, which means that the players, managers, agents, football clubs want to receive more money, a bigger piece of that pie. So as the Premier League gets bigger, it all filters down to those people. It doesn't go to like TV production that keeps
Yeah.
getting cut and cut. It doesn't go to like the little people at the football grounds or anything. It goes to the players, the agents, the managers,
Mm,
and the clubs themselves. So as the money gets bigger, that check will get bigger. That will continue to expand, and yeah, it's not really going to change too much in terms of big spending, and players will still say, "Well, I'm valued at 150 million because that's what I can get over in Saudi Arabia. So you have to pay that if you want my services." Unless they actually, heaven forbid, a footballer think, I want to challenge myself and I will take a pay cut, or I will be valued at 50 million less,
no,
despite
no.
what my agent wants, because he wants that little 10% Brucey
Yeah, yeah.
bonus as
Come
well.
on,
Like,
come on,
it's just
come on.
not,
Yeah,
it's not going
come
to
on.
happen, is it?
No,
But
come on.
it's a very good image to portray, and it is still, look, a cap is a cap at the end of the day. It'd be interesting to
Yeah,
see what happens when people want to go over it.
yeah,
The other thing, right, Sam, you're an Arsenal
yeah.
fan, right?
Yes, mate.
Kylian Mbappe becomes available,
Yeah.
and I don't know,
Mm,
Real Madrid in 2 years' time say you can have him, but it's going to cost you 250 million. Say that
mm.
is about your cap. I mean, I think it will be a lot more than
Yeah,
that,
of
what
course.
teams' caps will be, but say
Yeah, I
it's
think we'll
about
be all
that or
right.
something. Say that's what
Yeah.
you've got left, and it's suddenly a last minute deals come in at the end of the transfer window. You know what January's like. And
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly, 250 million, he's yours, and he'll win you the Premier League this year.
Mm.
Haaland's out injured, City is stumbling a little.
Yeah.
And you're Arsenal, and you think, well, that's probably worth it. But I tell you what, Real Madrid, what we'll do is we'll do what so many clubs around European football have been doing for the last few years. You see it a lot in Italy. Is you give us 100 million and we'll have him on loan for this year. Or we'll
Yeah,
give you, sorry, 100 million. We'll have him on loan
yeah,
this year, and then we'll
yeah,
give you another 150 million
yeah,
next year that goes
yeah,
towards the new cap. So we'll just
yeah,
shuffle all that money down the road anyway, and
yeah.
we'll start seeing what these GMs in the NFL are doing by restructuring contracts and pushing the money down onto the
Hey,
next cap and the next cap, and it'll be
Arsenal are
fine.
doing it. Arsenal had already done it. Arsenal are already doing it. Been doing it for the
So
last few years. If you look at Raya, we've done it with Raya. That's why he's on loan, but
it's
he's coming.
it's what's going to happen. It's the way that it's just going to be. Okay, if we really want somebody, we can still spend as much money as we want, and we'll just sort it out in installments, and that's the way it'll go. Crap. I mean, we've been doing that on Football Manager since we were kids, upfront and
Always.
then monthly fees for the next 3 years. That's how you try and do it when you're in the lower leagues and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah, that's
in
the
the
way.
five
That's the way it
years,
will go down.
in the 5 years when it all catches up with you, like, oh,
Yeah, never made it out
but
of League
yeah,
One. Bollocks.
I tell you what though, I tell you what, I think Tottenham might need to still do a bit of investment. Watching that game back at first half for Arsenal, mate, we blew them out of the water towards the end. What did you think of the North London derby this year?
I mean, this was something I wanted to ask you, and I know you're going to have a very biased head on it, right?
Yeah,
But it's the best. Before we get into what happened with Spurs and Arsenal that day, it's the best derby in England right now, isn't it? In English
I think
football,
so.
there isn't a better derby than the North London derby.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to put this away now. Man City and Man United is not the same. Arsenal versus Man United, the fans kind of just about make it
The
that
older
personal, but it's not.
fans, maybe, yeah.
But yeah, it's not the same. Um, West Ham, Tottenham, that's kind of playful banter, I suppose, in a sense,
Yeah.
if you're going to call that the
Arsenal,
derby.
Chelsea. I mean, it takes long enough to get from Arsenal down to Chelsea and vice versa. So you might as well not be really a
I
proper
mean,
derby.
doesn't matter.
Ev-
Doesn't matter who we play. I mean, it's
Ever
eight goals between the two of them.
Everton, Liverpool. I mean, that's a great derby in terms of what it means to the city, but it doesn't mean much because they're so far
No,
apart in terms of like quality. And Liverpool United, again, it's great history, but United aren't really there right now. You don't really feel like that has much of
no,
an edge or some spice to it. Whereas the North London derby for me means so much to
it's
both of
big.
these two teams,
Yeah,
every single year,
yeah,
particularly this year going into this
yeah,
one on Sunday. Huge
yeah,
for both
yeah.
of them.
Yeah,
It's
it's funny when you say about the gap because obviously even when there was a divide with and listen, I'm not trying to just be that guy, but Tottenham at one point we're nowhere near it, right? So, you know, I'm talking Gary Mabbott days. So but it still meant them games then they still meant something. There was still that sort of fire, and I don't think it's ever lost. I don't think it's ever lost that. And obviously when Tottenham had a season where they were slightly better than us, and I say slightly, it was like right, we need to get back to it. But even in games, it was like we're going to stop you, and
mm.
it really did. It really did mean something. God, boy, yeah, this game had it. For it to go 3-2, and as much as Tottenham fans keep saying, if we had an extra 10 minutes, well, you don't. It's a 90-minute game at the end of the day. Like I don't know what that sort of meaning means. If we had an extra 10 minutes, come on, like that. I mean, it's nothing. But it was a good end. I was certainly nervy. Don't get me wrong. I was sweating buckets towards the end of that game. But yeah, it always lives up to. I don't remember a boring game. I'm trying to
Do
remember a
you
boring game, and I can never do it.
rate Postecoglou in his ability after being 3-0 down and a distraught
What
Tottenham performance in the opening 45 minutes, the ability to adjust
he didn't? What
as
he did? Did he? Did he adjust?
I mean,
Did
he
he
must have
adjust?
done something. Like they came out and looked a much better side in the second half.
I,
Or do you think
I,
that's then just Arsenal just almost blowing it?
I think it's more on us. I think I did a bit of content around this as well. I actually think that for the first, I think it was 61st minute or something that Raya makes a mistake, right?
Mm.
Leading up to that, for me, that first 15 minutes didn't cause us any issues. We shut up shop. We were okay. I don't think they were causing us any issues. I mean, even if again for Raya's goal. there wasn't really anyone putting that much pressure on him. Richarlison wasn't even getting there. He just got caught in two minds of doing what he was supposed to do. I think
Yeah.
if Raya clears that ball, they're still not getting a sniff. You know,
Okay.
um, at old Ange ball, he didn't change anything. What is the thing? He
I
didn't change
just
it. He made subs. He brought on Richarlison. Great.
well,
His
I was
contribution
gonna
was
say,
a
I think
headbutt.
yeah, but I think the bringing in somebody like Richarlison, look, the headbutt's not necessarily great. It's not a headbutt. Like, Gary Neville gets
Sorry,
that
shoulder.
so wrong. It's
Yeah.
100% a shoulder.
Yeah.
Neville was
Yeah.
so into that initially,
Yeah. I know.
uh,
Yeah.
but also that's what the game needed from Spurs' point of view was like an edge because it didn't have an
Yeah.
edge from them in the first 45 minutes. So making changes even to just bring up a Richarlison that looked like he was on smelling salts as he came off the bench, kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing.
Jesus.
It like something like that just gets you back into a game because it shows somebody who's really freaking rough around the edges
He,
and willing to fight, and it rallies other people as well.
he,
And I
he
think
did. He did.
Postecoglou recognised that he needs something like that as opposed to maybe a slightly easier on the eye, prettier footballer like Madison.
Of course, of course. As I said, I just don't know if I don't know if I'm putting it down to him. Honestly, I think when you with again, what is Romero even doing in that position in the first place for when Raya does that? And I think that's probably another reason it probably caught him out because players see pictures that they've been shown video analysis and little bits like that. You're not seeing your centre half coming towards you at that point. He's not left the little pocket. I think that what again that might have been something that threw him. But after that, you're in a North London derby. You've just given the home side and 55, 60,000 fans a lifeline, right? They were
Mm.
always going to rally in, and that's where the Declan Rice thing comes in because we were a little bit scrappy at that point. I don't think that's Ange. That's Arsenal creating that environment from that mistake. There was a couple of times where we've gone on the break, and it was Havertz that was one on one with Van der Ven. We changed it and put Martinelli up. I think if Martinelli was at that some of those one on ones at times, as much as Van der Ven is quick, that ball, it might have been well past him before even to get the recovery. So they got lucky in some of those moments as well. And I'm not saying that Tottenham played badly because I don't think they did. But because I don't think they did. Honestly, I don't think Tottenham actually played badly, and I honestly will say that. But I think Arteta in the first half had their number, and that's why I said I'll give as much as there's some criticisms of some of the commentary. One of the things that they did pick up on is what Arteta did. And he just shut up the middle of the park because that's what they tried to do.
Mm.
They used Madison, and Madison didn't have a sniff. He couldn't do anything. There was no nine darters from him. Let's put it that way in this game because he wasn't getting a sniff. So I think we deserved the win long term. I think they took the chances well in the sense that with what we gave them. I don't know how Michael Oliver didn't see that penalty though, Ollie. I mean, what we looking at there is
We're gonna
Rice has volleyed him.
we are gonna have a sit down and do a full on like 45-minute VAR chat at some point at the end of
Yeah,
this season, honestly, because I couldn't agree more with people like Adrian Durham that are just saying, look, we just need to get rid of it now because
mm,
it's not helping
mm.
anything. And I think it's making referees sit back and feel like they don't have to make
You
decisions
don't
like
have to
that
make it.
because
Yeah.
Michael Oliver is staring that straight in his face and how he's not seen it. And let's not forget, like Michael Oliver
Yeah,
is one
yeah,
of the
yeah,
best referees in this country. So
yeah.
how he's not gone, that's a penalty, and instead has waited to let VAR get involved. I mean, at least it was VAR clearing up a glaringly obvious error, which is
Yeah, of
what it's there
course.
for.
What
But
it's
like,
and it is what it's there for. But how you not? Like you said, you're as I'm looking down this camera, that's the view. You're staring just directly at one thing. It baffled me, but I, I come back. I really don't want to get into sort of VIR and referees, but again, like
no, no.
I'm just the lack of consistency again because whilst it didn't happen this season, when Crystal Palace, I think was it McCarthy or something, volleyed Saka one time and full on volleyed him, yeah, and they looked at that and then went, no, there's nothing wrong with it. It was exactly the same thing. There was penalty shouts there saying from that game that happened previously, it wasn't given. We look at Saka's one against Neuer, for instance, in the Champions League, but then you look at Jota's one.
Hmm.
It's like there's just this lack of piece. I know. I'm glad that we're getting a system that does happen in the Champions League. So I think it's a little bit quicker and a little bit more sort of fluid in terms of decision making. But I do think referees have got to be a little bit more accountable. And I think whilst you say they can be lazy, I think this is where the PGMOL, whatever it is, needs to be sort of looking at a bit of a system. Go, well, here's how many you missed. Here's how many times you had
Mm,
to rely on VAR and start using that accountability. Because if
that
that's where if you're
that'd
like
be
that,
really
where you're
good.
just allowed to, yeah. Otherwise, me and you could ref.
A
Well,
point
I'm like,
scoring model where
yeah,
you say like you relied on VAR to overturn a decision on average 3 times in a game. That's not a high enough level of refereeing at this point.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it makes them make a decision. Hopefully, it also makes them not fear making a decision and then having it being proved wrong. I'd
yeah,
rather a
yeah,
referee in the moment made the decision after a couple of seconds of thinking about it than a referee and get it wrong than a referee not make a decision and then wait 3 minutes while we then play on for a bit. Then VAR pulls it back. Then we have a 10-minute respite period where we're all looking and waiting and wondering what the screen's going to do. And then
yeah,
we, I
yeah.
mean, look, referees apparently in the Premier League don't even know what they're refereeing at this point with Anthony Taylor on the weekend for that Liverpool West Ham
Oh,
game. I mean, that was as bad as what we had in the Champions League with Bayern Munich.
yeah,
What is
yeah.
going on? He's not blowing a whistle or anything like that. And then
It's
staggering,
mad.
staggeringly bad. And
It is. It is. It is. I mean, as I said, mate, I don't know. I mean, there was even in that game. I think there was an instance where um, I think it was Erdegaard made the run through, pulls the ball back to Havertz, but he's already blown up for offside. But the ruling is that he should have seen the play through because Havertz scores.
mm,
I'm not saying that Erdegaard wasn't offside, but when they showed the replay, god damn, it was close. So how do you know? So why did
mm.
the game should have been played through? The goal goes in, the referee blows up, right flag
Yeah,
then goes up as it should do, and we still didn't check it.
but then we get into the thing where people are scoring and then we've got no one celebrating because everyone's looking around first to be like, "Am
Well, Van der
I
Ven, that
okay?" And
well Van der
like,
Ven didn't he? Van der Ven, Van
yeah.
der Ven obviously.
I mean,
I think he equalised at the time. Yeah,
I find it really it's sad because scoring a goal is the greatest moment for a footballer that you can have on the pitch, aside from a keeper maybe saving a penalty or something like that. Scoring a
yeah.
goal is what gets people out of their seats. 60,000 people stood up, cheering and roaring their head off,
Coventry,
and we
Coventry.
just yeah, and we just completely have these moments where like somebody scores and people are just tentative about celebrating it because they might pull something back for 2.5 minutes ago. It
Tough in
just
it.
kill. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Look,
killing the
like I
game
say,
in a bit.
let's have a
Yes.
VAR rant later on at the end of the
Another time.
season. We can
Yeah,
get it all
yeah,
off the
yeah,
chest.
yeah.
Let's
Let's
move away from football, mate.
let's.
Let's.
Well, I'm going to stick to some sort of football because I tell you what, we
Okay.
saw some dreams being made. NFL draft, mate. It was lovely. Obviously, over the weekend, a lot of sleepless nights. This end would have been okay for you. You would have been all right on a good
I was
time
all
zone
right.
being able to see
I
that.
had, I actually had the first round ticking through on my mobile phone in my little
Yeah, nice.
studio while I was waiting for a game to kick off. So I got to see a lot of the picks straight off the bat. So I was enjoying it. I mean, look, we're doing 1 a.m. finishes Argentinian time anyway on some
Yeah,
nights. So it was kind of perfect for me. It's filled the 2 hour gap between games. But
it's not
it's a
bad. It's not bad.
it's a great night for the players. It is a phenomenal night for the NFL in what they've turned
Mm,
it into.
mm.
I find it staggeringly weird as fans. Staggeringly weird. Bill Burr put it so perfectly in a stand-up comedy bit he had many years ago, which the draft is like going to a graduation ceremony where you don't know anybody that's graduating.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you have no affinity to anybody who's walking up there and having their name called out. There's no like, it's unlikely. I know you've obviously spoken to some of the rookies that have had their
Yeah.
dreams come true in the last few
Yeah.
days, and
Yeah.
and there's a couple of people I know that have been impacted massively by the draft this year for
Yeah.
positive reasons. But in general, most of us just go, well, he's joining my team. So suddenly now I bleed for him
Yeah.
like I bleed for all of the other players. But there's no attachment or emotion. And like, what, over 250,000 people turned up in Detroit over the 3 days to watch that?
Ollie, it's more
It's
to
so
it
weird to
though.
me.
But it's still a giant. Is a giant. It's like tailgating though for me. It's like a giant tailgate still, and obviously you still get a chance to obviously see the players. There's still trades, live trades. So you're kind of getting a moment to be almost there for a live decision that your organization's made, whether it's the trade or the pick. You know, we don't get to be in the office, as it were. We get to find out from obviously the in the knows. So at this point, we're getting to find out about picks at the same time as all of those people. So I kind of do like that excitement. For me this year, there was a lot of excitement because we just didn't, as an Arizona Cardinal fan, we didn't know what was going to what was going to happen. Were we going to pick up that on paper the best wide receiver in the draft, or were we going to get clever and we were going to trade down? That's all the rumors have been. It's heavily leaning towards us trading down, and there was such a divide with the fans and what was gonna happen. Obviously, us being able to pick up Marvin Harrison Jr., the celebration between obviously the fans that were there and the fans that were back there in Arizona was amazing. So that's something that obviously I wanted to stay up. But I think after that I was able to get like a little bit of shut eye just because it was like a weight off my shoulder that we'd obviously done that. But it was, obviously it's like shocks. Obviously, we've got Cousins, obviously with this big contract that he's got, and their first round pick that the Falcons do is a QB. Like, what? That was a bit of a shock.
Perfect. Absolutely loved what the Falcons did. Touched on it with JP Shadrick when we spoke to him just after the opening night of the draft. Jacksonville Jaguars reporter, a part of their radio and TV coverage, and obviously Westwood One college football commentator. So he knows about these kids coming out of college and then some. He's seen some of them at the peak. But the Falcons taking a quarterback just after you've signed Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr., I think so smart. Because as I touched with JP, how many players have we seen look so much better when they sit and wait and learn the game a little bit behind a great quarterback? The Falcons have got their QB room sorted now for 5 years. It's the
Mm,
most important position on the field. And they
mm,
have, in theory, a youngster with great potential and an unbelievably steady veteran already in place. And if Cousins isn't quite the same after his big injury, you've got the youngster there if you need, or if Cousins goes down again. And if Cousins stays there and flourishes, you've got a youngster learning behind a great QB how to run an offense, who will then learn to be more of a pocket style quarterback with the way that
mm,
Atlanta will play with Cousins. And he has that mobility if he needs it. I couldn't love Tom Brady more off the field as much as I disliked him at the Patriots for always winning on the field. Because Brady keeps on coming out with these slogans about how young kids today, it's all about their Instagram and the brand. And that means you can't win as a team because you're all making about individuals. Brady's discussed about all these young athletic QBs who aren't like Manning and Brady and winning at the line of scrimmage before the ball's even snapped. They have to resort to using their athleticism because they don't learn the game as much as perhaps the lesser mobile QBs back in the day used to.
mm,
And I think that Atlanta are now in a perfect position to take a young mobile QB and teach him before he even takes a snap in the NFL how to run a pocket style offense and then use those legs if he needs to. And
mm,
Kirk
mm.
Cousins got 100 million, so he's doing all right. He's doing
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so I hear you. I do hear your point. I do hear your point. The QB room setup's nice. That they know they've got a good full guy that could potentially take over. But you spent a lot of money on your on on Kirk
Mm-hmm.
Cousins, right? But obviously you don't have to pay this guy the rookie for another 5 years, etc. But it doesn't always work out. Jordan Love is not a bad one, where he's obviously he's come in, he did see a little bit of Aaron Rodgers, and then obviously he's had time to come in different snaps when he got injured or whatever it may be. But I look at Trey Lance. It didn't really work out for Trey Lance when they did that. And so I don't, because sometimes players need reps, right? It's not like, let's say, like English football where there's maybe an under 23s like reserve game or something like that they can play. But what's he gonna? Is he gonna be ready? How do you get someone up that maybe sits for a year after having such a sort of upward trajectory through college to NFL to get picked at that point? That's always my little concern there. And if you're paying the big man there whilst you're learning, and that big contract he's got, when are you going to have any confidence you're going to get any reps? Not just after a year, but maybe longer.
Dude, as a young kid, you get more confidence learning and playing against a scout team defense that is still NFL quick than you do doing what Bryce Young's had to do this year, or last year, should I say, which is going in and getting your ass whipped every single week. I mean, he
Yeah,
ain't coming
yeah.
out of this year with any confidence. We've seen enough New York Jets quarterbacks come out of their rookie season after getting to play and realizing that they
Uh,
are a shadow of their former self and being chased by ghosts around the field. You know,
uh,
it's like watching a QB with like PTSD, watching Jets old QBs. Like every 4 seconds, man. It's horrible.
don't do that.
So
My boy Zach
go
Wilson,
and
he'll
get
be back.
yeah, okay. So will Sam Darnold. Sure, sure. Yeah, they'll
Oh
all be
yeah,
back. Don't worry.
good old
Zach,
Sam.
Zach
Sam will
Wilson's
do
gonna
you.
be Zach Wilson's gonna be in the headlines for more off-field antics than it's gonna be on the field. Trust me, when it comes to that guy.
Oh
But
man.
look, let's the greatest QB in the NFL right now, Pat Mahomes, sat sat behind Alex Smith and waited, albeit he got to eventually play pretty early on in his career. But he initially went into Kansas City with like, you are the future, but we've got a very good guy who's taken us to playoff games and who can play this game and knows it better than you do right now. So we're playing
Mm,
Alex Smith. And Pat Mahomes had to wait. And look, if you want to compete, guys, it's about competition. That's how you get the best teams in the NFL. Iron
mm.
sharpens iron. You want to use all of those kind of tropey comments? Go out and compete because all of these guys talk. Every NFL player
Yeah,
talks about how, yo, it's great to go out there, compete with the best and compete with the best. Compete with the best in your own facility
that's
and then
true.
see if you're good enough to step into the NFL field. That's what
Yeah.
I want to see.
You know what I found interesting actually this year as well, the running back situation. We've touched on how sort of the game has changed a little bit and the value of running backs. How late running backs actually got picked up
Mm.
this year. There was such a big class of wide receivers. People picking up some really good bargains, obviously, towards the end as well. With wide receivers going as far into the sort of second and third round, some still receivers with some great numbers, but it was the running backs. Yeah, it's some good running backs that have put up some big numbers that
Yeah.
again weren't getting picked up like till very late. I mean, I'm talking from a Cardinals point of view, and I think it was the Cowboys. Cowboys picked up Jonathan Brooks. And we've got here we got Trey Benson and the other one, Braylon Allen. The
Hmm.
Raiders. I thought this guy, is a great pickup, and it really didn't cost them anything because one, the pick is late, and two, you know what that means when it comes to obviously negotiations with your contracts and what was you put in the round that you were picked up. So I found it really fascinating this year, and I wanted to ask you: is it because the game has changed, or is it because college football has got better that there are so many more players of a standard available now that people can wait a little bit later down the rounds to get certain positions.
I think the running back position in the NFL now is massively devalued. I think there are hard-nosed Russian running backs. Like, look at Mark Ingram, for instance, or
Mhm.
basically any of the Georgia running backs, people like Sony Michel who've come into the NFL and look really impressive, even if it's just for a few years. Todd Gurley, for instance, as well, had an exceptional kind of 4 or 5 year run in the league at one point. These guys, though, get beaten up almost more than anybody else. They get injured easily because they're dealing with inside the trenches and off tackle open field tackles, which can cause problems in itself. And if you have a good running scheme, you can put a fast guy in or a big guy in, and the blocking work gets done for you. Now, there are some
Mm.
exceptional talents that can recover when blocking falls down, like the ability of Christian McCaffrey to find holes and be patient and wait. Le'Veon Bell at his best as well, for
Mm.
instance.
Mm.
But because teams are A, pass first, and B, operating multi-back systems,
Mm.
the the point of a first down running back isn't as strong as it used to be when you had like a 3, 4 down running back in the day. And it's
Yeah.
and it's you can just pick pieces together and kind of chuck them in and hopefully it'll work out nicely. One running back in the first 65 picks in the NFL draft
Yeah.
is pretty
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah.
But also
Uh,
look at what we saw in the first round of the draft with defensive players not going until what the mid-20s in
yeah.
picks.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah.
QBs taken in the first 12,
You know what?
13
Can I
picks.
tell you why
I
that
mean,
was? Can I tell you why that was? Because Steve Keim was no longer our GM. Because God damn, that's all we used to always spend our first round picks on. Oh, if he was there, that would have definitely changed. So we done everyone
I'm
thank us.
100% convinced that you had the Harrison jersey printed up before draft night, because the amount you were talking about him and the amount, like, if it
Ollie,
wasn't Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Ollie,
that was
I
going to be a
wanted
jersey
to.
in the bin.
I wanted to. He hasn't signed his NFLPA deal. There's no jerseys for sale. You got people running right here. We're dying to buy his jersey. We can't yet. He needs to sign the deal, man. Jesus Christ. We want to get the jersey. I was ready. I've been looking at it. I've been eyeing up the nice white jersey. We got the Arizona badge there as well. I really wanted to get that, but no, he's not signed the deal. I need him to do it. Then obviously the jerseys will go up, and I'm sure they're dying for him to do it because merchandise, I think, will blow up there for sure. So yeah, I was ready. I was going to riot though if we didn't. I think yeah, I'd be having to go out there myself if we didn't get him. Some of the memes that were going out, you got the like hold the line, you got the Braveheart like memes that were coming out like
Come on,
do not,
guys.
please do not. It was unreal, but it was a fun draft night. Obviously, some English players that obviously got drafted as well, which is awesome. You touched on obviously some of the players that I've interviewed in the past, but we obviously got to speak to Austin McNamara, who got picked up by the Bengals as well, which is pretty
Yeah.
awesome
Who
for
do?
him. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you know some good players there. Obviously spoke to Darius Henderson, you know, who's managed to go to the Houston Texans, so he's going to be there, blocking for CJ Stroud, which I think is amazing little start for him as well. And Dylan Larbe, sorry, he's a bit of an underdog running back, but he's ended up at the Raiders as well. So the boys have done well this season. I've got to say, I'm you know, you said about not having an attachment, but when you get to speak to these guys, you know, realize they're
Yeah.
humans in a sense, realize the dreams that they've got are the same dreams we potentially had, whether it's to be, you know, basketball player, football player, golf, or whatever it may be. They're living the dream right now. So fair play to them, and yeah, I look forward to seeing how the season go. Before we move on to the next subject, I want to ask you a question, and it's really brief. Really brief. Is the NFL draft the start of the season or the end of the season?
Yeah, it's a start. I know
It
it's
is the
not
start.
the official start, but it is the start, because this is where there are guys that are guaranteed to be making those rosters. Some of those guys won't make the rosters. Some of the fifth, fourth, sixth, seventh round picks, the undrafted free
Mm,
agents, won't make a roster potentially.
yeah.
But Caleb Williams is playing for the Bears next year, without a doubt. So now you're getting to see what the start of your 2024 season is going to look like,
Okay.
with big influences coming into that team. So it's, yeah, for me, it's the start. The
Okay.
Super Bowl's the end of the season. Nothing
Yeah.
else can happen after the Super Bowl. Like,
Yeah.
we're done. Shut it down. Into the combine a week later. Yeah.
I just because I saw someone speaking about it, so I was like, actually, I'm going to pose that question to Ollie as well. I thought it was the start, like you said, you're bringing in players for that season, so I thought it was the start as well. Um, we haven't touched on Mr. Rory McIlroy. He picked up a win for a change, mate.
Ooh.
Was it was it easy on the eye? Was it hard fought? What was your opinion of it all?
I mean, it went down to a playoff. Him and Shane Lowry working as a combo against. Completely escapes me. I should have done more prep. I'm terrible at this, Sam. Um, but in the Zurich Open, and
Yeah.
look, it's great. I think it's massively important for Rory, because all of these tweets have been coming out and memes have been
Mm.
coming out of Scotty Scheffler's caddies made more money than Rory this year already, which is like brutal. If you're Rory McIlroy, you did not need that coming out of yet another failure at the
Brutal,
Masters.
isn't
People going,
it?
"Oh,
Yeah,
Scotty
yeah.
Scheffler's caddies made more than you, Rory, this year." Jeez. So I think it's big for Rory to get in the winner's circle. I think it's actually great that he was doing it with a Ryder Cup teammate, somebody he gets on with. Shane Lowry used to play with Patrick Harrington, I think it was, who's now on that Champions Tour, the kind of
Mm.
more senior tour, so to speak. So
The
Lowry needed a new
Legends
partner.
tour, the Legends
I
tour.
think, yeah, I think it is. Yeah, yeah, the Legends Tour, and
Oh,
Lowry needed a new partner,
yeah.
and therefore he and Rory apparently had a drunken night after the the Ryder Cup. We're like, do you fancy doing the Zurich? Yeah, okay, why not? And there was a load of discussion about how like they should have worn green together and everything with Northern Ireland and Ireland and such. And apparently Shane Lowry doesn't have a green top to wear for playing golf
What?
in, so they had to
Dude.
stick with the white. But it was great. It's good to see
Yeah.
Rory on the come up.
Yeah.
It's interesting though because it's a weekend that has collided with Live Golf in Adelaide and Cam
Of course it did.
Smith and his team winning the team event in Adelaide, which is massive for Australian golf fans.
Mm,
And honestly, what happened in Adelaide this weekend highlights why the PGA is in trouble in
mm,
terms of the fan base in golf, because
mm.
the PGA doesn't go down to Australia.
Nah,
Live ticks so many boxes around the globe that people
it's
can
bringing in
get
more.
close to seeing their idols.
Right, yeah.
And the more the PGA doesn't expand and go to like a worldwide tour, the
Mm.
more fans around the globe are going to go, well, I can go to Live and I can see Cam Smith, who's my golfing hero, up close and personal, and even end up doing shoeies with him at the end of the day or something. Whereas PGA is very much more, look, it's in the US, it's US based, it's US.
Mm.
Good luck, everything else kind of thing.
Is
So,
it is it a case of they need to maybe do like a we say Super Bowl, we talk about NFC, AFC. I know it's kind of maybe the Masters potentially, where we had obviously had live golfers in the Masters. Do we need something like that where there is kind of you can still have your divide, but ultimately there becomes a bit of a bigger get together and it gets moved
uh,
around maybe.
yeah, well, they need what they need to do is they need to join together, and then the PGA needs to potentially reduce the number of events it has, but make
Mm,
their signature events, their big events, still stand out in the calendar. And then you put live golf around it, and you remove, in my opinion, the individual aspect of live golf, and
mm,
you turn live golf events into team events that go around the globe,
nice,
which means more travel for these players, but it gives us a little taste of Ryder Cup team action, which is what
nice.
Live's doing right now. And it ticks more boxes for the PGA of getting all of their stars going around the
Mm,
globe and playing at their
yeah,
potential home courses, home countries,
mm,
etc. Because it means a lot for the
I like
athletes
it.
as well. I mean, Zhou
Yeah, yeah.
Guan Yu in China for the F1 almost breaking down, getting his chance to actually race in the Chinese Grand Prix
Sounds yeah,
finally.
it's unreal. Yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful moment. So
yeah,
it connects with more fans around the world. You can still then keep the PGA, the big events, keep the cuts, and turn Live into a 4 day event,
yeah.
and remove the shotgun start. I mean, there's quite a few murmurs coming out of Live that John Rahm is kind of like, I'd quite like it to go to 4 days actually, potentially, especially after
Of
his
course.
poor performance at the
Ah,
Masters.
it's poor. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It's
there's
poor.
quite a few of the Live boys that are kind of saying, oh, I do miss playing, like not playing that tournament this year and that tournament this year on the PGA. So there's a few hints of regret, but there's also
Yeah,
something that the PGA can definitely learn. And if they can
no,
just join together, we want to see all the best golfers playing. Because it would be
yeah,
great to see Rory and Cam Smith squaring off every single week and stuff like that. It'd be
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see. I'd like to see different courses as well. I think that's the thing. Like, but you said, obviously they're going worldwide. It'd be nice to see different things. I think it will, and again, add more participation into it. I think it will open up the sport a little bit. It's as we know, it
Well,
can be a bit of a closed book, right? So it'd be nice to
if
sort of open it up a little bit.
it brings in different styles of golf as well. For instance, like when they play the European Tour does a lot of events in Dubai and the
Mm,
UAE, and there are
mm,
places like Yas Links where if you go off, you can be in such trouble because it's super thick and
yeah,
super sandy off the course.
yeah,
So that causes a problem. Or you go to Scotland, obviously they have like the Scottish Open, the Genesis, on the European tour, and
a
it's
little bit
linksy
windy.
and it's wind and it's
Yeah,
difficult,
yeah,
and that's why the
yeah,
Open's amazing. And then
yeah,
you go to
yeah,
the US and it's like, well, Florida's kind of the same as Arizona and kind of the same, and the bunkers are
flat.
nice and fluffy. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of similarities suddenly shining through. Maybe not so much in the Hawaii events at the beginning of the year. So it brings in more
Yeah,
skill sets
yeah,
into the
yeah,
golf equation. So
yeah.
maybe you see different winners. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That'd be nice. It'd be nice to see. But again, yeah, coming back to the Rory point, nice for him to pick up a win. He does need to have a little bit more consistency now. It'd be nice to sort of see him bounce on from there. But we've been saying that for a long time now. So I think he's got to find out. Picture what he did to win this. I think that we
Mm.
spoke on it before, but a lot of people said he doesn't know what he did to win. I mean, whether it was a sleeve-in pattern, what he ate, how he approached the ball, etc. Hopefully he's taken that in a little bit, and it's not just instincts every time, because I don't know if that works for me in golf. And I think Tiger Woods one of the best, well, not the best to do it. We'll say he knew what he had to do, to win tournaments. But yeah, I mean, well done. Nice little change for him to win. And one last point for us to cover, because there will be a change at Red Bull. And do you think this is going to work out for them? Do you think they can bounce back? So Adrian Newey is obviously moving on, right?
This is huge. This is absolutely massive. Adrian Newey has been put off by everything that's taken place behind the scenes with the allegations around Christian Horner. That is the reason why he wants to depart. It's a well-known fact now in Formula One, and he wants to leave Red Bull, and he wants to be able to get out of his contract at the end of this year and have the ability to work at another team in 2025. And it couldn't be much bigger for shaking up what happens in the F1 world, because Adrian Newey is, without a doubt, the brightest brain
The
that
genius. Yeah.
exists in Formula
Yeah.
One. They
Yeah.
say that he can see air, as in he will
That's
think
insane.
about how to change the car, and in his mind, he can see the airflow of how it's going to operate
That's
and
wild.
change going over the car, and then he'll implement it into a computer system and
Oh
then be
my
proved
God.
right. It's phenomenal.
It's like the
So
last Airbender, for those that obviously ever watched that, Unreal.
And for Adrian Newey to want out of Red Bull after designing this immense machine, albeit one that has been said in the last few
Mm,
weeks, Red Bull are struggling to work out how they can continue to develop this car
mm.
because they're reaching, they feel, the maximum limitation. Well, you ain't finding any more if you don't have Adrian Newey in your ranks for 2025 and beyond. Not only that, but if Adrian Newey's able to jump ship to a Ferrari or a Mercedes, and look, you sell the kitchen sink, the house, you remortgage 4 more times to make sure that you land him in your stable for 2025. Because if Adrian Newey is there for 2025, he's helping redesign your car for the 2026 engine regulations and working around that, which then
So
sets the tone for the future of F1.
I, I I can see him at Ferrari. I really can. I, I really do. And Lewis going across, Adrian, come on, it's kind of like lining up to me, with another bit of. I mean, whether it's dominance, I'd like to see not complete dominance. But I would, we talked about the Premier League, but it'd be nice if Adrian Newey, right? He has to just go on loan moves to different teams to bring people aligned again. But if he ended up at Ferrari, it would be awesome with Lewis, Leclerc. Obviously, for 2025, he's going to see little bits that they can probably do even then. At that point to make certain slight changes. But like you said, be ready to build that car for 2026. I'm sure there's already been some sort of work and things look into the future at Red Bull. But if we can bring it in where you've got Ferrari, Red Bull actually going toe to toe, no doubt Mercedes will have something in place. But we've seen the likes of McLaren come through now. Aston Martin obviously, starting to get a little bit stronger as well. How nice would it be to actually have a more competitive grid with with 5 teams? We're talking 10 spots there, where actually that top 10 fighting for points is insane at that point. Not to mention maybe what's going on with Alpine, because I think they're a team to potentially keep an eye on with what they're doing. Yeah, you say, yeah, but you know what? Keep an eye on it, because I think there's something going on there. I don't think it's going to be a publicity thing. I think there's going to be something else that kicks on
It's
with them. But as I said, all of this would be amazing. Like you say, Adrian Newey going into a different team would be huge. My thing that I need to ask about Red Bull is, if he's leaving for those particular reasons, are they going to continue to sweep things under the carpet, or is someone else going to have to potentially move on at some point in Mr. Horner?
so it's become difficult apparently at Red Bull. According to reports, there has been a weird power struggle and a kind of divides in the camp over everything
Really?
that's happened with Christian Horner. Now, if I was Red Bull, I would probably argue it would be better to get rid of Horner than Newey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep the best mind in F1. You could easily find somebody. not easily. What Christian Horner's done in terms of leading that team has been
Yeah,
great. He was
yeah,
found to apparently not done anything wrong despite the allegations of indiscretions. I guess we have to go with that
yeah,
um, in terms of what the internal investigation has found. And it's not
yeah,
gone to a court of your law yet or anything like that. So
yeah,
at the
yeah.
moment, the only evidence we have is that it has been deemed that he didn't do anything wrong,
Mm,
despite there still being challenges and accusations suggesting otherwise.
hmm.
But if that is the case and that internal investigation has found that, there is no reason for Christian Horner to move himself on. And I don't think Christian Horner would ever move himself on, even if it's detrimental to Red Bull Racing.
Yeah, yeah,
So Red Bull
yeah.
need to make a decision up at the top, but it sounds like the decision has already been made for them by the fact that Newey has kind of released this, albeit not directly, slightly more indirectly, but it's the best unkept secret now in Formula
Yeah,
One
yeah,
that Newey
yeah,
wants out and to join another team. The best
yeah.
team for him to join right now, Sam, is linking up with my main man from Los Angeles, California, Big Daddy Zachy, Zach Brown.
Yeah,
Hook up,
yeah,
hook up at McLaren,
yeah,
where they are on the up and up. They have been
yeah,
on a
definitely.
huge upward trend for the last
Hmm.
3-4 years now, massively because of what Zach Brown has done in integrating himself into that
Hmm.
McLaren operation, the order, the structure he's brought in, and the personnel changes he's made. Not only that, you've got two great young drivers, which if Adrian Newey gets it right now,
Yeah,
Hamilton could potentially be like a one and done at Ferrari. Like, I'm going to get that last world title. Once I get
yeah,
it, I'm out. Retirement
yeah,
isn't far away. They've got
yeah.
Charles Leclerc, but Ferrari's also a bit uninspiring in terms of the calamities they've had off the grid with pit stop making decisions, their inability to execute, the malfunctions they've had with the car over the last few years. And Fred Vasseur isn't exactly like inspiring like a Toto Wolff, for instance.
Nah, fair.
Whereas Zach Brown, even though he's not the head guy on the grid necessarily. He's not in the same position as a Christian Horner. He is the overall big daddy of that
Mm,
McLaren racing team in general, which is why he's at the Formula E as well and bouncing across to all other operations of McLaren racing. He is charismatic enough to, I think, be able to lure in a mind like Adrian Newey, and Newey will recognize the upward trend and the great two young drivers they have in Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. And everybody looks good in that orange and black. Everyone looks good in that orange and black. McLaren would
yeah.
be insane not to try and get him, if I'm honest. I know everyone thinks Mercedes and Ferrari, but I really think McLaren could make a big push for him.
McLaren's a good shout. I've got to say the two with Lewis going to Ferrari and obviously what's happening at McLaren. I think certainly if you're a young driver, they're probably the seats that would be quite cool to be in. I think if I was like kind of that sort of sex appeal, if that makes sense, as though like what's actually where do you want to go? I think they're the two. I think when you look at it, I think Ferrari needs Lewis for this. Like
Mm.
everyone wanted to be in that red car. That red car, so iconic, right? Everyone wanted to be in, but it's kind of fallen short with Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Actually, I would have, me personally, I would have probably kept Carlos Sainz over Leclerc, but um, maybe I don't see something. There's something I don't see, but I think you know those two as a pairing not very inspiring. Whereas I think with Lewis, I think even after Lewis retires potentially, I still feel like he could be involved in some factor of bringing certain drivers through Ferrari, and I think that could be quite cool. But I think the same could be said about McLaren because that's what they've done with the drivers that they've got now. So yeah, maybe they are the two, certainly the two top teams, but what do we know? We have to keep an eye on what he obviously does. Is there going to be plenty of twists and turns for sure. But I'm looking forward to Formula One becoming a little bit more competitive when these changes are made, obviously, and certainly in 2026. Because listen, I can't knock it, but Red Bull have destroyed it. Like they've just dominated now, and it feels like
Mm.
the kind of Man City feel. So it'd be nice to get to a bit more of a three horse race potentially at that point. But yeah, mate, devastating news for Red Bull. It'd be interesting to see how they recover from that. But it's been an exciting week of sport. Well, maybe a few extra days on top of that week of what's been happening. But there's a lot to obviously come now. Obviously, there's still going to be transfer links as we get towards the end of the football season. We've got Champions League coming up, the title run, obviously, certainly in the Premier League, because everywhere else seems to be wrapped up at the moment. And obviously, plenty of competitions coming up. with the Euros. We're going to see who's going to be injured, who's going to be up for selection. We got the Olympics coming up, so we need to keep an eye on that. I hope you've been practicing your break dancing as well, because that is an event this year. I hope you're ready for that one.
I'll stick to the track and field, mate. Honestly,
Track and
it's
field,
fine.
yeah. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Bit of discus. Get the classics.
Discus. Oh yeah, there you go, there you go. But mate, that's been another week in sport.
Força Veles. That's all I'll say.